Hey gaming fans! So today I have a Yu-Gi-Oh deck profile for you, which is based on the embodiment of punishment and the embodiment of crime. So these are pretty much two Xyz monsters that are designed to work together. You got to get them both out on the field for their effect. And so naturally the deck is pretty much just a level 1 deck. You could put other levels into the deck if you want, but I decided to go the route of just playing all level 1 monsters. So to get started, we have, obviously right here, the Winged Karibo. So it's a good monster. I mean, it's a fairy, so that's important. And if this card on the field is destroyed and sent to the graveyard for the rest of this turn, you take no battle damage. So it kind of helps you, you know, stall out your opponent and survive, so you can build up your field. Then for more level 1 fairy support, we have Arcana Force Zero the Fool. Interesting card. It came out with all the other Arcana Force cards. They're all about flipping coins to try and pull off these crazy effects. The good thing is his main effect is he cannot be destroyed by battle, so that doesn't matter. That's always there. But if you flip a coin when he's summoned, if you hit heads, you negate the effects of all your spells and traps and stuff that target him. Essentially, you can't target him with anything. And if you hit tails, it goes to your opponent. That your opponent can't pretty much do anything to him. So he can't be destroyed by battle or spells or traps or anything like that. So really cool card, and if it sits there long enough, you can build up your board or build up your resources to pull out your crime and punishment cards. Then we got more fairies with Guiding Light. This is cool. This is why I like this deck, because this guy actually helps out to build up your field. So when this card is normal summon, you can target one level 1 light monster in your graveyard and special summon that target. So you're going to go probably for your Winged Karibo or your Fool, depending on what's out in the graveyard. You can even grab itself. I mean, it's a light level 1 target, so pretty cool. And then to round off the, well, I guess the light targets, well, there's more in here, I think, but Rainbow Karibo, he's not a fairy, he's a fiend, but it's okay. He still helps stall out the deck. He's still a level 1. But you can only use the effect of Rainbow Karibo once per turn, and when your opponent's monster declares an attack, you can target the attacking monster and equip it with this card. That monster can no longer attack. So it can save one of your monsters on the field from being destroyed, or if the other effect is if your opponent declares a direct attack while this card's in your graveyard, you can special summon this card but banish it when it leaves the field. So as long as you got like one of your traps out to prevent battle damage, you can bring him out and then activate one of your traps to prevent the damage, and then next turn you have him there for XYZ fodder. And so that's it for the fairies, well, and the fiends. So the rest of the deck is pretty much Morphtronics. So I'm playing 3 Morphtronic Cell Phone. Again, these help special summon more level 1s to the field. This one, just like the Arcana Force, is a luck-based card. It uses the die roll instead of a coin, but essentially you roll the die when he's in attack mode anyways. You roll the die, and whatever the number is, you look at that many of the top of your deck, and then if you can find a Morphtronic card, you can special summon that card. So the other effect, it's when he's in defense mode, and it really just looks at the top few cards of your deck. It doesn't really do much. So the rest of the Morphtronics I play are Morphtronic Vacuumin. He's unfortunately a wind monster, so he's not going to work with your Guiding Light. But while in attack position, he can send an equip card to the graveyard that's equipped to him to inflict 500 damage. You might never use that effect unless you have to. His second effect is good though. While in defense position, once per turn you can equip one face-up attack position monster your opponent controls to this card as an equip spell. So he's kind of like Relinquished, Thousand Eyes Restrict, you know, all those monsters that just absorb a monster from your opponent. So what you can do is on your turn, if he's in defense mode, you can steal your opponent's monster. Then next turn you can turn it to attack mode and fling the monster off of him to do 500 damage. Then again next turn you can turn him to defense mode again and suck up another one. But that probably will never happen. I mean, it'll be very hard to get that to pull off. So your next Morphtronic cards are Morphtronic Lantron. Again, level 1. So all the monsters are level 1. So all you need is 4 of them on the field, essentially, to pull out your crime and punishment. So while in an attack position, any effect damage you would take from opponent's card effect is inflicted to your opponent instead. So if they're playing a burn deck, this will come in handy. I don't know if many people really play burn, but you know, you never know. He is a tuner too, which is something to keep in mind. And while in defense position, if this card is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you take no battle damage this turn. So sort of like the Winged Karibo, if your opponent attacks him and he goes to the graveyard, you're pretty much safe for the rest of the turn. And to round up the monsters, we're playing 3 effect failures. Also level 1, also a tuner, and its effect comes in handy. So if your opponent activates a monster effect, you get to just discard this card and negate it. So really good card, and again, comes in handy being a tuner. So that's it for the monsters. It's a pretty heavy monster deck. I mean, I think there's like 23 in here last time I checked, but so let's get to the spells. So because we're playing all those good fairies, Court of Justice. So once per turn, if you can special summon 1 fairy type monster from your hand, but you must control a level 1 fairy type monster to activate and resolve this effect, and you can only use it once per turn. So it's really cool, especially if you have your Fool card out in defense mode, your opponent can't get around them. You pull this out, you can now special summon your fairies from your hand to help build up your monster count. And another card to help build up your monsters on the field is Mimiclay. Kind of similar, but instead it summons from the deck. So, but your opponent has to have a monster on the field, so you can't use it on turn 1, obviously. But if your opponent controls a monster, you could target 1 level 2 or lower defense position monster you control, special summon from your extra deck in defense position 1 monster with the same name. But then banish it when it leaves the field. But again, that's okay, because you're probably going to go into your crime and punishment cards. And you can only activate 1 Mimiclay per turn. So it is a hard once per turn, so I decided to go with 2, just because I didn't want, you know, too many in my hand, just like the Court of Justice. So I figured 2 and 2 should be fine. Then just to help pull out some more monsters, we got Flute of Summoning Karibo. Basically just add a Karibo or a Winged Karibo from your deck to your hand, or special summon that card. And you know, I was thinking of adding in the actual Karibos as well as Winged Karibo, but it really didn't help too much with the deck. So I just went with 1 of this card and then 3 of the Winged Karibos. So I figured that should be a good ratio. Then we also got Instant Fusion to pull out a Thousand Eyes Restrict, who is also a level 1 monster, and Foolish Burial. So you know, if you have your let's just say you have a Guiding Light in your hand, you can toss the Fool into the graveyard, summon the light, bring out the Fool. You know, it just helps. Or you can take whatever you need into the graveyard, and then you can summon it back with, you know, some of the traps in the deck. So that's it for the spells. And it's a very small spell count because we play a lot of good traps. So I threw in 1 XYZ Veil. Face up XYZ monsters with XYZ materials cannot be targeted by card effects. So it kind of gives your crime and punishment, these guys, a little bit of a layer of protection. Extra layer, I should say, because they already have their own. Just makes it tougher for your opponent to get around them. And same with Number Wall. So activate only if you control a number monster, which these guys both are. And number monsters on the field cannot be destroyed by card effects, cannot be destroyed by battle except with another number monster. But then when a number monster you control is destroyed, destroy this card. Again, it's just another extra layer of protection, just to make it that much harder on your opponent to get rid of them. Then for your own protection, I put in 3 Wabaku, because it'll protect you, it'll protect your monsters. So if your opponent attacks, you can activate that and make sure everything is safe. And of course, 1 Threatening War does the same thing, just kind of ends the battle, or prevents your opponent from attacking that turn. And then we got 2 back to the front. You know, again, with your Foolish Burial, you could take whatever you need. Or if you get one monster in the graveyard, you could just flip this up, bring your Fool back, or whatever you need, Winged Karibo, just to save your neck. And then rounding it off with just some protection. Again, some Solemn Judgments. You know, just to help out if your opponent plays anything that could destroy your field. slow you down, mess you up, you know, play Mystic Mine or something. Hopefully you can negate it. And so that's it. That's it for the deck. The extra deck, really, there isn't a whole lot you can do in this deck for the extra deck. At least, well, you can, but your main kill here is your crime and punishment cards. So I'm playing 2 of each, kind of like a backup plan, just in case, you know, you get one out in the field and your opponent can get rid of it somehow. But essentially, their effects they work in tandem. So as long as they have an effect XYZ material on them, so it says this card cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects while it has XYZ material, and your opponent takes any battle damage you would take from battling this card. And I think the other one is pretty much the same thing. Your opponent takes any battle damage from this card, but then its main effect is once per turn during either player's turn, you can detach 1 material from this card, change all monsters your opponent controls to face-up attack position. Also, all monsters your opponent currently controls must attack this turn if able. And then, so essentially what it is if you have both of them on the field, their effects that they cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects is active. So your opponent now has to attack into this thing. They don't get destroyed by battle or card effects, and your opponent takes all the damage instead of you. And they only have 500 attack. So if your opponent has a huge field of monsters, every one of those monsters is going to have to attack into these guys, and whichever one activates the effect. And then it's not going to die, but your opponent's going to take a ton of damage. So just in case you don't want to go that route for whatever reason, I threw in a Sky Cavalry. You know, maybe it's a little early in the game. This card cannot be destroyed by battle. Well, it has XYZ material. At the start of the damage step, if this card battled an opponent's monster, you could detach 1 material. So, I mean, it's kind of possible to pull this out. Well, he is a level 2, so I don't know. I'll probably take him out. But there is a way to pull out some level 2s in this deck, and that's with Formula Synchrons. So they're pretty much there just to draw cards. You can tune with them as well. So you can either pull both out and then, you know, overlay them into this guy, or you can just tune into a 3, which is Tatsunuko, Oko, whatever you pronounce it. If this card synchro summons a monster, you could use 1 card in your hand for the other material. So what you can do is, if you pull 1 out and you draw your card and you still have a level 1 on the field, you can go into level 3. And then if you have another one on the field, you can go into 4. I mean, these are just kind of backup plans anyways. I probably wouldn't go into this if I had to. Unless I had to, I should say. And then Link Karibo, because why not? You might just start off with 1 level 1 monster. So why not have a Link Karibo out there? And of course for your instant fusion, Thousand Eyes Restrict, it's a level 1 monster. And you get to steal your opponent's monster and prevent them from attacking. Well, if you can bring them back from the grave, I should say, with Back to the Front. So pretty cool. Interesting deck, interesting concept. There is a lot of ways you can play this deck. There's a lot of level 1 monsters out there, but it's interesting to explore ways of pulling out that combo. And of course, it does really matter what it really matters what your opponent's playing and if they're going to flood the field with monsters, or just even have 1 big one, which can help. But anyways, that's the deck. Let me know what you think. If you have any ideas or what you would play in this deck, what kind of level 1 monsters you would play. I always like to hear your thoughts. Anyways, hope you liked the deck. Hope you subscribe. Talk to you later.